Well, hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah. I am a homeschooling mom to 3 little girls ages 7, 4.5, and 1.5, and we are, slowly nearing the end of our very first official year of homeschooling. My 7-year-old for first grade, my 4.5-year-old loosely with preschool, and then my 1.5-year-old just doing things you do with a 1.5-year-old. And I've had a lot of revelations this year. I've tried out a lot of things. If you guys are new here, I love systems. I love improving things. I love routines and just making the most of our space and our time. And so I definitely have applied that to homeschooling. So a lot of you guys have been asking tons of questions about homeschooling on Instagram and on YouTube. And so I thought I would just take a bunch of those questions and put them into a whole Q&A video. So those of you who are interested in homeschooling can watch this, and those who aren't can bypass it. So I split up the questions by, type, and I will have chapters in the description so you can jump ahead or go back if you guys are, wanting to jump around and see different answers to things. So the very first topic I'm going to talk about is starting homeschool. So if you've already started homeschool, maybe you want to jump past this, but one of the questions was, when is the earliest you can start homeschooling? So one of the biggest revelations I've had when it comes to homeschooling is that, at least for us, it is so much more a lifestyle than a thing we do, if that makes sense. So we do have like homeschool time, but I look at it now a lot more like it's just our life. It's not just like this one thing we check off. We are learning all the time, and I've really realized that I have actually been homeschooling, by my definition anyway, since, my first daughter was born. I was an English teacher for a couple years, then I nannied, then I started daycare, and then I was also teaching preschool to my daycare kids, which also were my own children. And so I've always valued education. I've always facilitated learning experiences and learning through play. And so my answer to that really is that most parents homeschool their little kids. They're talking to them, they're engaging them, they're buying different activities, they're setting up sensory bins, they're going to the park and talking about what they see. That is all homeschooling. But if you want the actual official, like, when is the earliest you can start homeschooling, I don't really have an answer for that. You can start anytime. I did not homeschool per se my daughter for kindergarten. I had just had a newborn like a week or two before her kindergarten year. It was the pandemic, 2020. And so she did go to public school for kindergarten, and she did go to a preschool outside of the home for 2 years. Before that, like 2 or 3 mornings a week, and then 3 longer days, mostly because daycare was really hard for her, having her mom shared with a bunch of kids. So that was kind of our middle ground for that. But yeah, you can start homeschooling anytime. And I think most moms are homeschooling their little kids. They just would never actually call it that. At what age did you start, and at what age do you plan on homeschooling until? So I am a type A planner. I used to have these huge like 10-year plans for my life, and even way before the pandemic I realized, like, I just don't think that's realistic. You just never know, especially when you're having children. You never know what your pregnancies will be like. You don't know if your baby will be healthy, if they'll need interventions, how you will cope, if you'll be, healthy after the baby comes. Jobs change, and now I think especially with the pandemic, we've all realized that our plans can just be gone in a matter of a moment. And so I love the idea of homeschooling until the end of my kids' careers in my home, educational careers. I think that would be beautiful, and that is a goal of mine. However, if for some reason, financially I need to have, a different job, or my husband loses job, or whatever it could be, that could change in a moment. So I'm never going to say this is our plan, it's gonna for sure happen. It is the goal, but I really don't know. And like I said, we've been homeschooling, I would argue, since, technically homeschooling since my oldest was like, I don't know, because she was immersed in the daycare world when she was 1. I started my daycare and I was teaching preschool then. So I don't really have like a good answer for that because I have kind of a unique situation with that, but we've been homeschooling. I've been educating at home for many, many years, but formally homeschooling with like buying a curriculum specifically for my children starting in first grade. We'll say it that way. And then somebody says, I want to homeschool my daughter beginning with preschool and I have no idea where to start. So my biggest tip would be just start. You don't need to know where to start. Just pick up something and start reading it. Start looking online at videos. Nobody is going to have the answer for you. You just need to get out there and start researching and trying out different things. I don't know any homeschooling family who's stuck with one thing the entire time and has never looked at anything else, has never tried anything else. I don't know any teacher who is just stuck with one thing. You know, every child's different, every class is different. Like, you just need to get out there and kind of experiment and have fun with it. And I love researching. I love trying out new things. And so this was right up my alley. I just started looking up different things. I would say definitely just start reading some books about philosophy of parenting and philosophy of homeschooling to kind of get a sense of what your philosophy is. And you may not know that fully till you try different things, which is basically what this year was for us. We are trying the classical method with CC. We are trying more a Charlotte Mason approach with our Heart of Dakota. We have the Good and the Beautiful, which I would say is more Charlotte Mason, but definitely still like a curriculum with worksheets and things like that. So kind of a very eclectic mix, so I could try out different things and see how, you know, what jives with us and what doesn't. And I've learned a lot through that process. So some of the books I would recommend reading are Call of the Wild and Free, Mother Culture, Mere Motherhood, Teaching from Rest, A Well-Trained Mind, For the Children's Sake. Gosh, there's so many. I'll put a link with a whole bunch of different homeschooling books you can read. And then just start watching YouTube videos. There's tons of homeschooling moms. There's Instagram accounts that you can follow and just see what, you know, jives with you. I don't think there's one right answer. I think people will argue there is like a better way of educating than another, but the beauty of homeschooling is you get to do what works best for you, works best for your kids, and that may change over time. And then how does it work legally? Do you have to register with the public school? So this is going to be different regardless, you know, wherever you live, whether it's a different state to state in the United States or different countries. Some countries you can't homeschool, which is a travesty. But here in Minnesota in 2022, unless something's changed, because who can keep up with the government anymore, you have to have a letter of intent that you sent to your school, your public school, after the age of 7, just to tell your school like we will be homeschooling. And there's like online forms to figure out exactly how to do that. And then you have to have yearly testing. Off the top of my head, that's the only rules you really have. There are obviously certain subjects you have to teach, and it's good to keep a record of that. But that's our rules here. Some places there's nothing formal you have to do. Some places there's a lot more formal things you have to do. So it just takes a Google search to figure that out. It's pretty easy, and there's lots of organizations that will help you with that as well, and tons of Facebook groups with moms just like me who would love to help you. So I don't have time to help every specific person, but find a local homeschooling group on Facebook for your area, and I guarantee you there will be moms there who will help you. They want to help you. They love helping other prospective homeschooling families. Okay, so I had a lot of questions about my family specific, you know, routines and days. So somebody asked, how many hours a day are curriculum based? So our actual homeschool time usually runs about 1 hour. Less time if my kids are really focused, which is rare, and if maybe some of the lessons are shorter. More time if we have behavior issues or my 4-year-old keeps like needing my help with stuff, then it does take longer. Or sometimes we just have more reading to do. Our, you know, language arts takes longer. Our math might take longer. Maybe my 7-year-old's having trouble understanding. If my 4-year-old is wanting to do school that day, then it will take a little bit longer too, because I'll be working with her. I just really let her take the lead on that, because I want school to be fun for her and not pressure and something she has to do because she's 4. I'm really trying to preserve childhood for all of my kids. What is our daily schedule? So I have tons of homeschool day in the life videos. I will link below of how I fit in homeschooling and managing our home and working on my business and stuff like that. But just kind of a rundown. I get up at 4. I work from 4 a.m. to about 5:30 a.m. Then I work out from 5:30 to 6. 6 to 6:30 I get ready, get dressed, make the bed, brush my teeth, whatever. And then 6:30 to about 8 is when we have breakfast, get the girls up, brush their teeth, get dressed, all of those things, and we hang out for a little bit. I lay our 1-year-old down for her morning nap / rest. She doesn't nap every day. Some days she really does. Some days she just kind of lays in bed, but we're trying to preserve that time just until the end of the school year, as she grows out of that, so that we can have this focus time, because it's really nice to be able to have it. And so from about 8 to 9 is our focused homeschool time, where we come usually to this room. We usually start with language arts, so that's our Heart of Dakota, not Heart of Dakota, our Good and the Beautiful language arts curriculum. So it's phonics, there are picture studies, there's poetry, reading, grammar, that kind of stuff, parts of speech, all that kind of stuff, all in one, which takes anywhere from like 10 to 20 minutes depending on how focused she is. Then we usually will do our Heart of Dakota. We'll move to our Nugget, our little like kid couch that you can like reconfigure. I'll sit on that. My 4-year-old and my 7-year-old will set up little lap desks on the floor, and they'll get out puzzles or beads or paint something or what have you. We have all different things they can do with their hands while I'm reading. We'll do our history from Heart of Dakota. We will do our Bible, our verse, our calendar, usually say the Pledge of Allegiance. We will do our story time, which we are reading through all the Thornton Burgess books, which are really, really cute and all part of the Heart of Dakota. So it's just a lot of me reading and teaching through living books, which is very Charlotte Mason. So we do that, and then that takes, I don't know, 20 minutes maybe longer. Sometimes we launch into discussions of different things. We look up different things. Sometimes they almost always beg me to read like a few more chapters of the Thornton Burgess books, because they're short and they're just, you want to know what happens next, because they're about these little animals and getting into trouble and things, and it's really fun to look at the world through their perspective. And then we usually end with math. Now, if my 4-year-old wants to do any kind of, I just got the reading lesson for her. I was trying to do the Good and the Beautiful's preschool, but I just felt, I don't know, I really like it. It's not that I don't like it. I just wanted something a little more open and go. Not that that isn't. It just, the reading lesson I just feel it's just easier to implement for us right now. So if she's wanting to do that, I will usually do that when my 7-year-old is doing her review page in the Good and the Beautiful for her math. We usually have a lesson which takes, 5 to 10 minutes of her learning a new topic or reviewing a topic, and then she has a review page pretty much every day that she can do totally independently, where she's adding, subtracting, doing fractions, like reviewing concepts she's already learned. So she doesn't usually need one-on-one help with me for that. So that's when I will work with my 4-year-old on her stuff. That's our typical routine, but every day I feel like there's something different happening. So that's our main routine when it comes to actual homeschooling. And then the rest of our morning is very open from about 9 to 11. Then I make lunch. I start laying everybody down for nap and having one-on-one time around noon. And that wraps up around, 12:45. I'm, finishing spending time with my 7-year-old. I've laid the other 2 down, and then I start working, and I work from like 12:45 to 3, and I fit in Bible time then too. And while I'm working and the little ones are napping or resting in their room, my 7-year-old will also do her handwriting. She has like a logic book that also has like cutting, scissor skills in it, and she will also, we're practicing like writing her last name and her middle name, so she does that, and then she listens to a lot of audiobooks, plays Legos, just kind of occupies herself quietly. 3 to 5-ish are free play. We'll go for walks, we'll play outside, we'll hang out inside, it kind of just depends on the day. And then supper time, then baths, bed, or any activities in the nighttime. So that's basically their routine in a nutshell. I would love to see how you use your calendar, so let me grab it. I think this is what you guys meant. So this is our calendar. I got this on Etsy. I don't know. We, you know, sometimes we'll do the days of the week song that I used to do when I taught daycare. My 4-year-old does go to preschool 2 days a week right now in the mornings for about 2.5 hours. So she's getting a lot of the calendar skills there, and she's not super interested in it at home. So I'm not like throwing it at her. I'm not forcing it upon her is what I mean. But I usually have my 7-year-old tell me the date. I have her say like, today is Monday, March 7th, 2022. We'll sometimes talk about the weather. We've got these different weather pieces down here. We'll talk about like how many days. You know, this is also great because we actually are learning calendar skills with my 7-year-old. So we can get this out and I can say, okay, what would it be 2 weeks from today? What is the date next Wednesday? And just having her find it on here is really nice. And I have her set this up as well. It's a great skill to figure out, you know, how it all works. But I don't know if that really answers the questions, but that's how we use it. And then somebody said, do you think you'll homeschool K-12 for all your kids? I kind of already answered that, but I would love to, honestly. I'm not intimidated by that. I think it would be amazing and a dream come true if I could, if it all works out. But honestly, like, I don't know where the world will be in 6 weeks, much less 12 years. So I really couldn't tell you if I will be able to do that, but I definitely would love to and hope that can happen. Okay, so then I had a bunch of questions about teaching as a homeschool mom, but teaching, the teacher role as a homeschool mom. What if you're not quite sure how to teach a certain lesson? Right now, I'm not really dealing with that. I find a lot of value in learning with my kids. Like a lot of the history stuff we're learning, I have learned, but I've never been a huge history person, so I'm kind of like relearning right along with them and looking stuff up. And I just think it's really fun to go down rabbit trails of different topics and learn with them. So I think that's one of the beautiful things I missed about teaching. Like, we would drop everything when I was teaching English. When a kid would ask a question, I'm like, I never thought about that. Let's look this up. What do you guys think? You know, I loved that part about teaching, and I love that part about homeschooling, that it's very organic and you can just kind of go down paths. But I know, you know, especially with math, parents get really overwhelmed. I'm not that scared because we have so many resources available to us in this day and age. There's a bazillion online classes our kids could take. There are tutors. I could have a high schooler come in and help my kid. And I've always done really, really well at school. And so I feel like besides maybe like calculus, I feel like I'll be able to figure it out. I may be, you know, eating those words one day, but I've just always been a huge learner. I did really well at college. I just love learning, and I'm not too worried about that. I know it's something that some parents definitely do worry about, but I would just encourage you. There's so many resources out there. Even if you don't feel comfortable teaching it, there's an online class. There's somebody you could pull in. There's lessons online that you could download to help you understand. I don't know. It's just not something that's intimidating to me personally, but I know is something that a lot of people have fear around. Do you find it's hard to switch from mom mode to teacher mode? I've actually never thought about this. I personally, because homeschooling is such a lifestyle, I don't really think there's any difference. I'm always mom. I'm just mom who's, I don't know, I feel like I'm always teaching them. Every mom is a teacher, whether your kids go to public school, private school, homeschool, whatever. Like, you're teaching your kids. You're the #1 most important teacher for your kids about life. There are so many things you are teaching yourself that you're probably not even giving your kids credit or giving yourself credit for. So I don't really think there's a big distinction between teacher mom and mom. It's just the same person. We're just doing something a little bit different, but we're learning all the time. So I don't really find that there's any difference. How do you handle chaotic days when behaviors are high and you need to get school in? not gonna lie, I am not the most patient person in the world, believe it or not. And I get very frustrated sometimes. I expected some behaviors. What I didn't expect, especially, I think reading is the big pushback our 7-year-old has right now. She'll start, you know, using her pencil all weird, or saying, like, I'll ask her to read a word and she'll say it weird. Like, I can't understand her. And it's just like, really? Just read the word. Like, it's not that hard. But I know that is her way of saying, this is hard for me. And so I often in those situations, I'll get out something to make it a little more fun, or will push it off to a different day. I very rarely do that, just because for her particularly, and every kid's different, I know if I do that once, she'll try to do it every day. And you know your kid better than anyone. But some kids, you know, if they get to a certain point, it is best to just drop it for the day. For her, she and I are very stubborn people, and I know if I give her that option, she'll push even harder the next time, is what I'm trying to say. And so I usually will just be like, you know, sometimes I'm like, if you don't do this, you're not gonna have time to play Legos this afternoon. You'll have to do it this afternoon, and we won't have time. You won't have time to do what you want to do. And that usually will be like, okay. So it's not really like threatening a punishment. It's just saying, if you're not going to do it right now, you're going to have to do it another time. It's going to cut into your own personal time. That's kind of how I handle it. I'm sure over time it may get harder, especially when there's 3 kids all homeschooling at the same time. But for now, that's kind of how I handle it. Do you ever get frustrated trying to teach them? How do you stay chill? I am not a chill person, you guys. I don't know. I get very frustrated sometimes. I think something else that's very frustrating to me is when I'm trying to work. Because my 7-year-old is in 1st grade, she cannot fully independently read yet, so I have to explain most of everything she does. It's very one-on-one. And so when I'm reading, my 4-year-old is involved. But when I'm doing, like, we're doing phonics, like, I cannot be helping my 4-year-old and trying to keep my 7-year-old engaged and teach her and focus on making sure I'm hearing the words she's reading and helping her. So that's been probably my biggest frustration, is just getting interrupted. Like, my 4-year-old will start crying because she's trying to do something and it's not working, and then my 7-year-old's already distracted, and then I have to help the 4-year-old, and then my 7-year-old's now not focused even more, and so it just takes so much longer. So like, those constant distractions can be hard when you have to have one-on-one time with one kid. She's gotten a lot better about doing stuff independently, but she's still 4. So, you know, we have our moments where, you know, she's trying to do a puzzle and she gets really frustrated. So I have to stop what I'm doing and help her, but then I can't be, you know, finishing. I think that's just the nature of homeschooling, and school is the same way, honestly. A teacher cannot work with 30 kids at the same time. If they're at a point in the day where they're asking for specific one-on-one help, a teacher's going to have to focus individually on each kid. So I think it's just the nature of school in general. If you have more than one child, there's going to be these moments, and I'm trying to get better, but it definitely can be frustrating when you finally get one of them focused and you're engaged and you're working and it's clicking, and then you get interrupted, and you can't keep that focus going. Do you ever get homeschool burnout? I have not really experienced that so far, just because it's such a short amount of time each day, and I really do enjoy it. But I know we've been sick on and off so much this start of 2022 that I've just felt burnout in general, and so homeschool's kind of gotten lumped in with that. But besides that, no, I haven't felt that a whole lot. It's been a great routine for our family. And then another question a mom had was, she plans to homeschool her kindergartner next August, but they don't have any groups of any kind, like for socialization or co-ops, that kind of thing. Do I think it's necessary to have some kind of group? I want to say yes, but not in the way you think. So I do not think it's necessary that you go to a co-op, that you have any kind of formal homeschooling group, but I do think it is necessary to be involved in something, whether it's church, whether it's having friends you see, whether it's family functions that you do regularly, whether it's whatever it is. Like, I don't think it truly matters what it is. I just think for our kids it's really important, but also for ourselves. So I am in a co-op right now, or I don't know exactly what you would label. I guess we have a community with our classical conversation CC curriculum, which I'm going to explain exactly what that is in a little bit in this video. But so we do that once a week, so that definitely helps. But even if I was not doing that, I have a group of local moms. We do nature walks every week when it's not frigid out, and we also have a book club I try to go to when I can, and I just have those moms to reach out to. I go see my parents every single week. We go for a Saturday night dinner, and I try to, you know, stay involved. They have Awana, they have Girl Scouts, stuff like that. So I do think it's important to have something, but I don't think it's necessary to have a quote-unquote like homeschool co-op, if that makes sense. I think it's can be nice, but definitely not necessary. Okay, and then lastly, I'm gonna wrap up with curriculum related questions to the curriculum I'm specifically using. So if you guys aren't aware, I have Heart of Dakota, like I said, for history, story time, like literature, logic, Bible verses, Bible, that kind of thing. And then we have The Good and the Beautiful for phonics and math. And then we also have CC. So will we continue to use Heart of Dakota next year? So if we are able to continue homeschooling next year, which is the plan, but like I said, you just never know. I do plan to use Heart of Dakota. I am super excited because I really wanted to use Beyond Little Hearts for His Glory this year, which is their ages 6 to 8 curriculum, which is all about U.S. history. There's a lot of great books in that one that are classic American stories, and I don't know, I'm really interested in teaching that to my kids, but I really wanted to go a little more gentle this year, so we did Little Hearts for His Glory, which is for ages 5 to 7, so my daughter's kind of on the higher end of that, and it's just been a really wonderful way to include my 4-year-old still with all the stories and stuff, but also pick some choices that make it a little bit more difficult for my 7-year-old for first grade. So we do plan to, I've kind of, you know, thrown around the idea of maybe trying My Father's World and stuff, but the more I look into it, I just really love Heart of Dakota, and I think we're just gonna stick with it because it's been working, so why not? But as far as language arts or phonics and math, I plan to still use The Good and the Beautiful. So do I love The Good and the Beautiful's language arts? I do. I found it to be a little, I don't want to say advanced, I just found it to move faster and more vigorously than I think my 7-year-old appreciates. Because I think last year having masking in schools for her kindergarten year, I feel like kind of put her behind where she naturally would have been at. So I do feel like that's not the greatest for her. I think it's a great curriculum, don't get me wrong, but they are updating it and revamping it. So we're going to continue. She's going to finish in a few weeks with the level K, and we'll move right into level 1. And I bought their 50% off sale because they were getting rid of all their, you know, current language arts programs to make room for all the new. So we're going to keep going with that and then just kind of see where she's at before I invest in the updated version. So we plan to continue all summer with language arts and math as the only things we do over the summer months. Math I've been loving, she's been loving The Good and the Beautiful, so we plan to continue with that as well if we homeschool this fall. As far as CC, I'll probably do a whole video on it. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm guessing we're probably not going to continue it next year. I love the community. I have nothing bad to say. I just have realized that my philosophy is very different than the classical model as presented in CC. And so I really don't see us continuing it long term. I don't do any of the stuff at home. I don't do the timeline songs. I don't do any of it at home. And so it just feels like a waste of their time to be pouring into a child who's not really doing any of that stuff at home, who's just, you know, going for the community days. And so I feel like we're taking up a spot for a family who could be fully invested in the program. And I just have realized we're very Charlotte Mason in our philosophy, and so I think we'll probably do stuff with friends or find a different co-op to supplement, just to have that weekly interaction with, you know, the same families over and over. But I'm not exactly sure yet. So that's kind of where I'm leaning with that. So in other, you know, some people have asked what actually is CC. It's very hard to put into words in just like a minute, but basically CC is it's classical conversations. It is a whole curriculum. It's not just a co-op, if that makes sense. So there's a whole classically based program that is set up with ages and stages. So when the kids are young, they're doing a lot of memorization. That's called foundations in CC. So they're memorizing, like they're doing tons of different songs for timeline, for math, for science, for history, for English, for Latin. There are tons of different songs that they learn and rhymes and things like that to memorize things. And so they don't always actually understand what any of that means, but they have it memorized. And the philosophy is, as they get older and they start essentials, and then they move to challenge, which is like the high school years, that is when, you know, their brain will be developed enough to use all of that stuff that they've memorized and actually apply it. And then as they get even older, they'll access a different part of their brain and be able to teach it. So I think it's a really interesting model. I just know for me personally, even though, you know, you can find research on all sides, I just find that I don't like making my kids memorize things that they don't understand yet, if that makes sense. And there's honestly, the amount of stuff they're memorizing each week, there's not time to teach them every single thing that they're memorizing. It's really cool that they can memorize these things, and I can definitely see how it'd be valuable when they get older. But I just am a very like deep, I want to go deep with these topics, and like right now, I don't want to wait to go deep with these topics. So I can see the value of it. I just know I want to be teaching the deepness of all these things right now, and not, I don't want to say wasting time, but spending time on things just to memorize it. I can see for math, memorizing multiplication tables and stuff like that, but as far as history and stuff, I see the value of it, but I also think if we spent all this time every day just singing those songs and not learning what it actually means, to me, it just isn't my philosophy. But I know a lot of people who do love it, and has worked great. And I think kids go through the program and it's astounding what they can learn and what they can say and what they can memorize and what their brain can do. I think it's an amazing program. I just think, you know, there are certain families who want to learn that way, and there are certain families that don't, and I think there's value in all. So that's kind of the thing. So the community days, you spend time, you do, you review all of the, you know, upcoming weeks memorization stuff. So you're adding on to the timeline song, you're doing math, facts, you're learning Latin, parts of speech and things like that. You review that, and then you do like a science experiment, which we really love. You do some kind of arts. So if it's learning the tin whistle, or learning about, you know, drawing, or learning about different composers and instruments and stuff like that. So you spend time learning about that. I think that's it. And then you review, you know, all of the stuff up until that week, because everything's split into different weeks. So I feel like I'm missing something, but that's basically the community days we love. Like, I have nothing bad at all to say about the community days. We love it. It's just a matter of, you know, continuing it at home. The whole idea is that you're also learning this stuff at home and going into it more and practicing, and we just are not doing that. Can you emphasize your second daughter's homeschool routine? Like I said, right now it's just very flexible. If she wants to do like a tracing page, she does. I have lots of, you know, learning through play activities for her to do. Letters she can draw in the sand. I've got little, like, I think it's called Little Learner's Busy Box, that I have little activities she can pull out and do, puzzles, or she just plays, and that's okay. Like, I'm just really trying to take her lead with where she's at and what she's interested in. Resources, tools, tricks to begin teaching how to read and write. I have a 2- and 3-year-old and am overwhelmed by options. This book right here is one of my favorites for teaching letter sounds. I have used this for every daycare kid I've had, and seriously, they learn all their letter sounds through this one book. Just going over it every day. And maybe you just do 1 letter a week and then add on, or you do the whole book every day, whatever. I don't know what it is, but it's just, this is actually memorized. And this is something kids do have to memorize. You don't just learn the letters through osmosis. They do have to memorize. So this book has been great because I used to just say A is for apple, B is for balloons, C is for cookies, D is for dog. And we would go through this whole thing, and as they would say it, they would start to remember the sounds, because I would say, what is D for? Dog. And we would all go, duh, duh, dog. What sound does D make? Duh, duh, duh. So it just helps them memorize. So I would just encourage you to start with something like that. I linked up below. It's called Alpha Block. We've loved it so much that it's all taped up. And then, I don't know, both of my older girls have learned their letters just through doing stuff like that. And, you know, when they see a letter, like once they become really, I feel like every kid eventually gets to a point where they're interested. They're interested in wanting to know what the letters mean. Like, oh mom, I noticed that's a B. B. And then you can say, well, what's this letter and what's that letter, and just launch into conversation naturally. I try not to be too formal about it because I really want them to have that drive, that love of learning. Now that my 4-year-old does know all of her letter sounds, we're starting the reading lesson, but we also have, there are sticker books where it's like paint by sticker, but they're based on letters, so that each sticker is a different letter, so they have to match the letter. You know, just, I don't know, I think a lot of it is just through talking to them and being engaged in what they're interested in. And then, you know, once they are showing signs that they really want to learn to read, then you can start. That's my philosophy. That's not everybody's philosophy. So you might start with Bob books or early readers, or you might get an actual curriculum. I don't think you can go wrong with any of those. And each kid is different, so you might try out different things. But I wouldn't push it on a 2- and 3-year-old unless they're really, really, really wanting to learn. Our 7-year-old was a very verbal, English-based kid, which is a big reason it's hard for me to understand why she's struggling now. I think because kindergarten in the public school with masks, I think, honestly, is what I think, because she was such an eager to read kid and knew all her letter sounds before she turned 2, because she was just like, this was her book and she was obsessed with it. And she was starting her Bob books at age 3. And so my 4-year-old, though, had no interest in that, and that's okay too. Neither are smarter than the other one. They just have different interests and learn at a different pace. So just definitely go with your kid, but I think learning through play is the best way. Get alphabet puzzles, get them out, ask them what the different letters are, make words out of it and sound it out with them. I think that's the best way for little kids, but each kid's different. How does your 4-year-old find doing both homeschool and preschool outside of the home? So the main reasons why we did preschool with her are, 1, she is an incredibly extroverted child. I am not an extroverted person. My 7-year-old is not very extroverted. She likes people, but she definitely needs her time. And I knew, especially with the pandemic, especially with our winters here in Minnesota, I knew our 4-year-old would likely probably not just want, but need extra time with people. And so that was honestly my main reason for signing her up for preschool. Also, I just knew, you know, it's our first year homeschooling. I didn't want to put all this pressure on myself. I'm also running a business, so I didn't want to have a ton of pressure on myself to do it all. So I just thought this would be a great way to, you know, homeschool her part of the time, but also she goes to preschool, gets that interaction. I don't fully like expect her to learn a whole lot of reading and writing from that and stuff like that. She definitely is, but I still feel like that's my job. But it's just been a great place for her to go and make new friends in the community and things like that. She loves it. I don't know, I think she would say she loves it. For the last question, which is what went really well this year and what may you want to change next year, I think I've alluded to a lot, but I think I'll save that for a whole other video once I've finalized, you know, and decided what we're doing next year. Because I feel like that would be a really long answer. So I hope you guys found this interesting. If you have any other questions, just you can leave them in the comments and I will try to answer them. But yeah, I would love to know if you're a homeschooling family. Are your answers the same? Do you have a completely different philosophy? What was your first year like? And what did you learn during that time? I just love hearing other people's experiences. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye guys.